Hello everybody, my name is Norbert. Welcome to Nursing in USA channel. I hope everyone is having a good weekend. In this video today, I'll be talking about test tips for the reading section of the TEAS. Remember last weekend I started my discussion on the TEAS, so I'm going to continue by talking about some of the tips for the reading section of the TEAS. If you all can recall, last week I told you that I'll be using this particular slide in all the remaining sections of the TEAS. The reason being that the more you repeat a particular information, the more we retain that particular information, and also it aids in the capability of recollection of that particular information. So in the remaining three sections of the TEAS, I will always start with this particular slide so that the more we know the general TEAS test tips, the better for us to be able to navigate smoothly when we are taking the test. The test is or the TEAS test is multiple choice, so it is beneficial sometimes to make educated guess. If you make educated guess, if you are not sure which answer is correct, make an educated guess. Most times, if you follow your instinct, it doesn't disappoint. I have had similar experience in my multiple choice exams. Whenever my mind tells me this is the answer, like that first instinct, always follow it. If you follow it, it can never lead you astray. So educated guess is highly recommended when you find yourself in a situation whereby you are not certain of the answers in the multiple choice exam. Another point is to work backward. Sometimes you might have more success in answering a question by looking at the options first and working backward. This technique is especially useful in math questions. So have it in mind that working backward, the strategy of working backward in this test is especially useful in math questions. The next one is look for absolute words. So look for words that signals incorrect statements. For instance, the use of the words like always, never, all, only, must, and will. Statements using absolute or definite words, like the ones I mentioned earlier, tends to be incorrect because they do not apply in all situations. They do not apply in all situations. So watch out for those words. So another tip is to recognize opposite response options. Often, if you find two opposite response choices, one is probably the correct answer. So let's say you are asked to choose all that applies. So you use your options. You happen to see that the patient is running a high temperature or a low temperature. So these are two opposite answers. So one of them must be the correct answer. So another strategy is to cover up the choices and answers. Um, Cover up the choices and answers when you are taking the multiple choice exams. So when you do this, the choices might make you second guess yourself. So if you cover up the choices, you will see that, oh, maybe when you read the question, you literally know the answer without looking at the options. So if you know the answer without looking at the choices, choose the option closest to your answer and not second guess yourself by reading the distractors. So when you are reading a question and when you read the question and you know the answer without even looking at the choices, go straight to the answer without looking at other options. So rule out wrong answers. By using your existing knowledge, you might be able to identify an incorrect answer. Eliminate incorrect answers and focus on the remaining choices. This is very helpful, and just have all these strategies in mind whenever you are taking the TEAS test. It's going to be helpful. So let's look at key ideas and details in the reading section of the TEAS test. So they're going to test you on your knowledge of key ideas and details. And in that section, you will be asked to summarize the reading. So when you are asked to summarize a particular reading, or when you are asked what the summary of the particular passage could be, first off, look at the topic. The topic, in the topic, you will see the subject of the essay. There you will know what or who you are reading about. So when you are reading a topic and you go to when you are reading a passage and you go to the topic, the topic will help you. The topic will help you to narrow down what or who you are reading about. So another thing is to look at the topic sentence. This is the first sentence of each paragraph. In that particular sentence, you can find the purpose of the passage in the topic sentence. Then you go down to try to get the main idea. So the main idea, for you to grab the main idea, just go to the last sentence of the first paragraph. If you want to know the main idea of a passage, go to the last sentence of the first paragraph. Just go for your answer, and this applies to the thesis statement. So when you ask the main idea, straight read the last sentence of the first paragraph, go to your options, and take the answer without wasting time. So under key ideas and details, you also be tested on your knowledge of inferring logical conclusions. First off, you may be asked in the passage, you will be asked, the first thing you do is to ask yourself what you can infer from you reading that particular passage. Remember, they are trying to know how logical you can be when you are reading a passage. So first, ask yourself what you can infer from the reading. Then you now scan for clues while you are reading the text. So let me advise you on this. You are not expected to read the whole passage. Guys, you are not expected to read the whole passage, because if you do it, and no matter, I tried, it didn't work, but until I figured out that when I was taking my pre-test for the TEAS, you will figure out if you read the whole passage, you will be cut off by time. So you have to know how to read the topic sentence, the first sentence of the paragraph, read the last one. Just go that way, first and last, then you go to the conclusion. So just scan. And when you are asked, some people will read the question first before they will go picking the answer from the passage. But just skim through the passage by reading first the topic sentence, the last sentence of the paragraph. Do the same thing applies to each of the paragraph, then read the conclusion. That way you will get the general view of what the passage is talking about. So let's continue. Scan for clues while reading the text. Then watch out for keywords. Sequential, chronological words like first, second, third, last, next, while, now, when, beginning and end, then subsequently. These are sequential or chronological words. Then with all these, you can now be able to draw a logical conclusion. So remember, the target of this slide is to let you know what you're going to do when they ask you to draw a logical conclusion. Okay, how can you conclude? What do you say? What can you infer from this particular passage? This is what you're going to do. Ask yourself what you can infer from the passage. Scan through the passage, watch out for keywords, then you can draw your logical conclusion. Then when you do all these things, you must surely see the answer on the options of that particular question. Then another thing, you're gonna be tested on the reading section of the TEAS is craft and structure. So in the craft and structure, under the craft and structure, it is important to know types of passages you can omit during your reading test. So under the types of passages, you have expository passage, the persuasive passage, and the narrative passage. The expository passage, under the expository passage, have in mind that the purpose of expository passage is to inform. When you are reading expository passage, they don't ask you, okay, what was the purpose of that passage? So a passage is expository when it is informing you about something. It is trying to give you a knowledge about something. So it is easier to figure out an expository passage by having these points on this slide. One, always to inform. When that passage is trying to inform you about something, always go for expository. That passage is expository, simple. Another thing is that an expository passage, there are a lot of numbers. When you see a lot of numbers on a passage, that shows you that it's an expository passage too. So it can be found in the encyclopedia. So most expository passage that the ATI will give you on the teaser test, they always draw it. They always extract it from the encyclopedia. And one other thing you have to bear in mind is that the title of the expository passage always has history on it. So bear these 4 points in mind. The exposition passage informs. The purpose is to inform. There are a lot of numbers in the expository passage. It is extracted from the encyclopedia, and on the title you always see history on the title. Let us look at the persuasive passage. So the persuasive passage, sorry. What's the goal of the persuasive passage? The purpose of the persuasive passage is to persuade you to do something, push you to do something. So, for example, the ATI may give you an ad note on the passage. In the ad, they may be advertising for people who know how to use the computer, and they need maybe they need somebody to be working in Walmart. And let's say Walmart is trying to hire somebody, and they put up an ad. So that ad the goal of that ad is to get somebody who will work for them. Or you can use any example that is more comprehensible for you, but or to you, sorry. The goal of the persuasive passage is to persuade. Another example of a persuasive passage could be an argumentative passage. So when you argue about a point, you are trying to persuade your audience to believe what you're saying. So in the way you can know a persuasive passage is that they persuade people to believe what they are saying, their opinion, and the point they're making. So another thing you have to know here is it indicates opinion, and you always see words like should, seem, and must. So look out for these words, for you to know that that passage is a persuasive passage. Look out for words like should, seem, and must. That way, you're going to know that that passage is a persuasive passage. Next is the narrative passage. So when you are given in the simplest way you can figure out a narrative passage is have in mind that narrative passage, they have a lot of the pronouns like I, my, we, they. So when you keep seeing these pronouns in a passage, it's giving you a sign that that passage could be a narrative passage. So then you have to now figure out, okay, I'm reading this passage. What's the purpose of this passage? When that passage is entertaining, that shows you also that it's a narrative passage. So the purpose of the narrative passage is to entertain. Usually, narrative passages always have quotation marks. It comes like a dialogue where people tell where somebody tells the other people a story, you know. So I'll try to entertain them about something. So it has quotation marks and it's always a dialogue. Then another thing that you have to look at in order to confirm that a passage is narrative is it tells personal stories, and it's usually a work of fiction. So when you see all these elements, that passage is purely a narrative passage. So so far there are some terms that you ought to remember. Terms like fact, opinion, bias, and stereotype. Simple state. Fact is a proven statement. When a statement is proven, it is a fact. When it is unproven, it is an opinion. So opinion is the opposite of a fact. Opinion is always subjective. When somebody says what he or she thinks about a particular thing. The bias is personal opinion. So in order to find the bias in a passage, read the topic sentence. When you read this topic sentence, you will see words like seem and should. So these words are signals. They will tell you that that particular passage is biased. Them stereotypes. Stereotype is some people's opinion about people. So they refer or label a group of people. So people who are stereotypical, um, they refer to particular people or particular thing in a certain manner, or they label a group of people. So that is the meaning of stereotype. So when you are reading a passage and a passage is talking about something based on a subjective view, that passage is signaling to be stereotypical. So master these words and use these particular words, this particular like on under bias. When you see seem or should, they will signal a bias. So read it and understand when a particular passage or which way a particular passage is going, whether it's a factual, opinionated, bias, or stereotypical. Another thing you'll be tested upon is your knowledge of the integration of knowledge and ideas. So under the integration of knowledge and ideas, you will be tested on how you understand what primary source or primary sources are. A primary source is an original material. Original material like video, text, print media, audio, and photograph. For example, if I happen to write a book, or if I wrote a book, let's say on the color of a grape tree, and somebody cites my book, you are citing an original material. But if somebody reviewed my book and you are citing what that person reviewed, that's a secondary material. So you gotta be able to understand what primary source is all about. Based on these examples, when these examples pop up, you know that they are primary sources. So another thing is the theme. You're gonna be tested on your understanding of the theme of a passage. So they may ask you, what is the theme of the passage? So when they ask you the theme of the passage, they're asking you your understanding of the general. They are asking you what is the general view of a passage. How can you summarize? How can you put together what you understood from the passage you read. So when they ask you the theme of the passage, they're asking about the general view of a text. So on the options, you're going to look at the answers that best gives the general view of that particular text. So that's what you look at for. So inference. Inference synthesize the information in an essay and draw a conclusion. So when they ask you, what is the inference of the passage? So you're looking at that answer that best synthesizes the information on that particular passage. Argument. Argument, an argumentative passage persuades. Like I said in the preceding slide, when a passage is argumentative, it is persuasive. It is trying to persuade the audience to believe the idea, a subjective idea. So when you ask whether a passage is argumentative or not, try to identify the main idea of the author and the supporting evidence, and also the relevance of the evidence. So in order to be able to decipher whether the passage is argumentative, you have to identify the main idea of the author and look out for his or her supporting ideas and also the relevance of the evidence. Evaluation of data. Here, you'll be tested on your knowledge or your capability of putting together data. They will show you, it may be on a pie chart, it may be on a histogram. So it's like your visual understanding. When you see okay, a pie chart and the red zone is 60%, the other one is 20, and the other one is 30, or they may ask you, oh, which of these has the higher percentage of? They will use it to ask you questions. So it's just to evaluate, it's just to test your capability to evaluate the data you see on that particular test day. So you gotta pay attention and know how to put together data. And I think you ain't gonna have you will not have a lot of challenges when this, as long as you are able to use your eyes and common sense, you can put together what a particular chart is all about. So as a recap, in this video, I spoke about the general test tips that I told you that I'm gonna repeat myself on the subsequent videos on the test. That way you can be able to recollect and know how to strategize during your test day. So I spoke about the key ideas and details, then went to craft and structure, and also I spoke about the key terms to remember when you are taking your reading test. Lastly, I spoke about the integration of knowledge and ideas. So guys, I know you can do it. Just follow this advice that I gave you in this video. Whatever you cannot understand, you can still ask questions. You can leave a comment on my page, and I will get back to you. If you think that something is confusing you, or you don't understand something, you can ask me a question. I can always get back to you. And also, if you have a good idea that you want to share to the public, you can as well. Okay, if you know a strategy that works better, or a good strategy that people can learn from, you can also leave a comment and say, oh, okay, regarding this, I use this and it worked. Or maybe just leave a comment. It could be a question, or it could be your own subjective tips that has worked for you. Guys, thank you for listening to this video. Thank you for also watching and listening. As always and as usual, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed to this channel. That way you can always get a notification when I come up with new videos. Thank you, and make sure you enjoy your weekend. Remain blessed. Bye.